Hello, everyone. I hope the conference is going really well and all of you lucky enough to be in Chiang Rai are enjoying your time together. Sorry again not to be with you in person this year, as is normally the case when the conference comes around. We're right in the middle of our Student Barometer wave at Etio. So it's a particularly busy time for us, but I didn't want to miss the chance to share a quick update with you all on your survey results. So this session is pre-recorded, but I've tried to keep it as natural as possible. So if I stumble over the odd word here or there, I'm going to leave it in for that little bit of authenticity. Normally my colleague Nick Pigeon would be joining me for this presentation, but he's otherwise occupied this year. So it's just me you'll have the fortune of hearing from for the next 10-15 minutes or so. So for anyone I haven't met before, my name's Sam Camden, client consultant at Etio. I've worked with Elise and the ICE team for a number of years now on the ICE Student Barometer, which sits within our wider Student Barometer survey project. For those unfamiliar, the Student Barometer is our flagship global survey and captures what students think at every stage of their higher education journey. It gives institutions a chance to benchmark their results, both within their own networks and against the wider global HE sector, helping to celebrate strengths and spot opportunities for improvement. So in this short presentation, I'll take you through some of the headline results from the 2025 ICE Student Barometer survey, focusing on how member institutions compare to our global benchmark. Okay, so drawing out some key trends, some strengths, and areas to keep an eye on as you continue developing and enhancing your student experience. So that said, let's dive in. So here is the full list of 148 institutions within this global benchmark, along with 28 the ICE member participants in this year's survey. So this number at the top here is the number, this is the global base number. So in total, 76,197 students responded to the Student Barometer survey, 9,288 of them from the ICE institutions. So it's normally around the 10,000 mark for the ICE each year, so about in line there with what we've seen previously. Now, I won't go into any great detail now as to actually the full institution list, but this will be made available for you to view in your own institutional slide decks, which should be released very shortly. Some more institutions here. And looking now at the response rates, so each one of these pink dots here represents an institution within the global benchmark. And as you can see here, there's quite a range of response rates. So from a low of around 2% here on the right-hand side, up to 100% for a couple of institutions here on the left, okay? So the ICE overall is this purple dot here, and as you can see, your response rate, 54%, performing very well versus the global average, okay? So the global average here is 24%. And this actually was an improvement on an already very impressive result last year, so very well done for everyone for your promotional efforts this year. So quickly, one important piece of demographic info to give you, so just so we know what we're comparing. So here we're looking at the study level breakdown, okay? So the ICE is at the top here, this bar, compared with the global benchmark. So as you can see, you have a much higher proportion of undergraduate students when compared to that global comparison group, so these dark purple segments here. So 84% of students from the ICE who responded were undergraduates versus 69% for those within the global benchmark. So now looking at the Net Promoter or NPS score. So here students respond to the question, how likely is it that you would recommend this institution to family or a friend? And that uses an 11-point scale. So students who score 0 to 6 are classified as your detractors. Those who score a 7 or an 8 are passives, whereas those scoring a 9 or a 10 are your promoters. So what you do here to get your NPS score is you subtract the percentage of detractors from the percentage of promoters to get this score. Okay, so your NPS score here is 22. So in theory, anything above 0 is a good score, as it means that you are being actively promoted more than you are being detracted. And you're also outperforming the global comparison here, as you can see, okay? And whereas between 2022 and 2024, your NPS fell by around 20 points, this year marks a significant recovery in this score, okay? So increasing by about 12 percentage points since the previous year. And this far outstrips the increase we also saw in the global NPS, which was a comparatively low 4 points over that same period. Okay, so now you have a significantly bigger group of students actively promoting your institutions relative to that group of detractors, certainly than you did 12 months ago. So good work all round on turning this around. Now another overall slide here. So this one looking at overall satisfaction. Now this is based on a single from the gut question asked towards the beginning of the survey. So overall, how satisfied are you with all aspects of your experience at this institution? So here the ICE institutions are performing slightly above the global average when you combine the percentage of those who are satisfied in light green here and very satisfied in dark green here. So these two segments. Okay, so that's 90% of your students versus 91% globally. And a bigger portion of students also are in this dark green, very satisfied category. And compared to 2024, this is also a better result than you achieved then. So up 4 percentage points when we're looking at this kind of combined total. Looking at value for money, so this unsurprisingly tends to have a fairly strong correlation with the student's overall recommendation and satisfaction scores. Okay, so your scores here are in line with the global average. So 84% of your students are either agreeing or strongly agreeing with the statement, to what extent do you feel that your current program is good value for money? And that's up 2 percentage points on the previous year. Okay, so those are the overall headline figures, and now we're going to take a close look at those satisfaction scores for each one of the key sections of the survey. So the first one of these is focused on the arrival experience. So here students will ask a single question at the beginning of that section. Overall, how satisfied are you with the arrival experience? And as you can see, 95% of students from the ICE institutions are either satisfied or very satisfied. So once again, the combination of these two green segments at the top here versus 94% in the global benchmark. But whereas the global benchmark scores have increased by 2 percentage points from the previous year, the ICE benchmark has seen a much bigger increase of around 5 percentage points in satisfaction since the 2024 survey. Okay, and once again, a much higher proportion in this dark green, very satisfied bracket. So important to note here that this section is asked to first year students only. Moving on now to learning. So the ICE overall is once again outperforming the wider sector, with 93% of your students satisfied or very satisfied with their learning experience as a whole versus 91% in the global comparison. And again, there is a higher proportion, that's 7 percentage points more in this case, within this very satisfied bracket in dark green. And as we did last year, we'll also take a quick look into that online learning experience too. Okay, so this is an area in which the ICE institutions have outperformed the global benchmark in recent years quite considerably. So your scores are here in dark purple, with the global scores here in pink. And as you can see, the satisfaction rates are indeed, once again, higher for the ICE overall, pretty much across the board here. Picking out some of the bigger differences, so for online tests and exams at the top here, your students are 3 percentage points more satisfied than the global comparison. And for online group work at the bottom here, so it's very hard to get right, online group work, your students are 4 percentage points more satisfied than the global comparison. So once again, a very positive picture for the ICE in terms of that online learning experience. Looking at the overall living experience now, so here 93% of your students are either satisfied or very satisfied versus 92% in the global benchmark. So as was the case last year, you're fairly in line in terms of your students' living experience. But once again, and I'm going to sound like a bit like a broken record by now, your students, the much bigger portion are in this very satisfied bracket. Okay, so 4 percentage points more than the benchmark comparison. Important now to look at a couple of slides related to student wellbeing. So the first one of these is on whether your students have any concerns around completing their studies. So here, if we look at these two brackets on the right-hand side, 69% of your students are either these three on the right-hand side, 69% of students are either slightly, somewhat, or very concerned around completing their studies, and that's versus 75% in the wider benchmark. So whilst it's never good to have a large proportion of students with these concerns, it's important, or it's positive to know anyway, that your students are overall less likely to have these concerns than the global average. And these scores have remained fairly consistent on the previous year. And now looking at how stressed or anxious your students feel, a bigger portion of your students feel stressed or anxious quite often or always, that's these two segments on the right here, than the global comparison. So that's 37% of your students versus 31% in the global index. So definitely something to keep an eye on here. And now the last one of these key sections, how satisfied are your students with the support services on offer? In this area, 93% of students are either satisfied or very satisfied, as are it's basically the same combined total in the global benchmark. Oh, no, sorry, you're up 3 percentage points on the wider sector here. Sorry, I misread that here, as well as your 2024 score too. So some good scores here for your support satisfaction overall. And once again, a bigger percentage in this dark green, very satisfied bracket on the left here. Now, it's definitely worth dedicating a few slides here at the end to careers, as future career impact is consistently, and I've said this in the previous years too, is consistently the #1 factor we see globally in terms of a student deciding where to study. So in response to the question, how well has your experience prepared you for your career goals? 94% of students at the ICE institutions said they felt prepared or very prepared, and that's versus 89% in the global benchmark. So as is consistently the case year on year, ICE institutions are overall significantly outperforming the global benchmark in terms of helping students to feel prepared to meet those career goals. Okay, so very important and very good that you're scoring so well in these areas. Looking at career support now by the expectations students have. So here we're asking students as to what employment career support they expect from their institution. So the purple bars here are the ICE scores, and we're comparing those to these pink lines here, which represent those global index scores. So very interestingly here, expectations across all areas are actually much lower this year for your students versus those in the wider sector, as you can see from this gap here. Okay, but of these various aspects of career support, it's training. So that's training around interviews, skills workshops, etc., things like that, and advice. So that's advice and guidance around career paths and career choices. These ones have the highest portion of your students actually expecting this type of career support when compared to the others. At the other end, representation. So that's contacting employers on your behalf, on behalf of your students. This has the smallest portion of your students who expect you to provide this service as part of your career support package. And finally, looking here at the satisfaction with those same career support elements. So once again, the ICE scores represented by these purple bars here and the pink representing the global benchmark. Here we see that your students are significantly more satisfied by this sort of gap here. They're significantly more satisfied than the global average across the board when it comes to these career support elements. Okay, so on average, around 7 percentage points if we're taking the average total across all of these here. So once again, very good to see that actually in terms of career support, you're really delivering for your students. Okay, so thanks for listening to this brief overview of the headline results from the 2025 ICE Student Barometer survey. So mostly positive once again, particularly with that very impressive increase in your Net Promoter Score, as well as careers again being an area in which ICE institutions seem to outperform the global benchmark year after year. If you have any interesting questions, or if you have any questions whatsoever on the data that you've seen today, my email address is up on the screen, so feel free to get in touch with me. Hope you enjoy the rest of your conference and your time in Chiang Rai. Thank you. Bye-bye.